like in the beginning, like I'm assuming that it's easy to outreach to accountants because no one outreaches to accountants, right? Like there's maybe the typical SEO company that's going, hey, we can get you to the top of Google, because basically outreach to everyone on the internet, right? But apart from that, it seems like a pretty untapped market, right? So it feels like that would have been not too difficult to get kind of in touch with people, right? But then you moved into enterprise sized kind of deals, right? And it's often not the same as the phone bangers that are just trying to contact basically every accountant across every area. So how did you shift sales and marketing to now start to attract these larger companies?
Well, it's all about targeting within an accounting department, and it's important to know, which people matter and which people don't. So if most companies selling Flowcast would go out there and say, CFO, we got to get in front of the CFO. This is an important process for them. Their numbers are going to fall apart so they're going to really care about this. I worked in this world. I know the CFO does not give a crap about the month-end close process. All they want to know is that it's done quickly, it's done accurately, and it's not holding stuff up. The one who actually loses sleep at night about it is the controller, assistant controller, and accounting manager. So let's target them. So it's like you can target those specific personas. And yeah, to your point, they don't get as many cold emails or cold calls as the CFO does. And so you have a higher probability of them opening something up. And if it's engaging and interesting and will help solve their problem, then they'll take the time to dig around and then, hopefully book a demo from there. So it was really about being targeted, and that persona doesn't change all that much as you go up market. It's pretty much the controller. But it's definitely things like the magic quadrant start to matter. What Gartner says about the industry, they start to care about that at the upper end of the market. A lot of people, particularly with accounting, they're just not going to believe what a sales rep says. They need to hear it from somebody else. It has to be referred by a friend. They have an old coworker who's used it, something to that effect. And trade shows as well. Reality is, people sponsor trade shows for a reason. People go to them, and we've closed a lot of business coming off of those. And that's more like than targeted at what more, we focus on ERPs. So which do I want to try to sell to NetSuite or Intact or SAP or Oracle or whatever? So you kind of target your marketing resources really that way based on ERP. And company size is more of an outbound targeting motion. Like for the bigger companies, you're going to have to be targeted with outbound. And it's just a big effort to get like the right kind of demo lined up.
How about LinkedIn ads? Like is that something which you've experimented with, have found success in, or not?
Let's see. So the time I experimented with it, it completely sucked. We totally wasted like all of our money. I've been told by our marketing department it's working out better now, but I'm a little too removed from it at this point. I'm not. I just trust our CMO with whatever he wants to do with the social budget.
How about like on the content side of things? I see that you create quite a lot of content talking to CFOs and talking to kind of specific accounting functions within organizations. What's your strategy in terms of the content side of things?
Content's one of my favorite topics. We actually, I think we're about to do a lot of big things with content. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag too early, but I'm very excited about what we're doing with our content strategy, broadly speaking. But I will say that a big focus of mine and just with the audience is I think there's a really big misunderstanding of accountants and what we are actually like as human beings. And so you see a lot of the content that's out there for finance and accounting people, very professional, very buttoned up, like very much on how are you better at your job? How do you excel at this? How do you adopt this guidance? All that kind of stuff. And all of that is important, obviously, and we're professionals and we want to be good at what we do. But like, I think, and this is from my experience, that the reality of accounting is most accountants don't want to get better at accounting. They want to work less and go home earlier and enjoy life a little bit more. And so let's just embrace that and keep it a little bit more real and be real human beings and just be like, hey, maybe it's not, oh, I want to optimize my close process so I can take an extra hour and focus on strategic initiatives and blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's more like, I want to optimize my close so I can save an hour so I can go home earlier and have dinner with my family. Like maybe that's the real answer. And you can appeal to that real human aspect of it. So I think that's a big thing for me with a lot of our content and our voices. I want to be informal. I want to, like, we're accountants. We get it. I want to speak to how accountants really are, not some stereotyped made up version of accountants that aren't actually how we really are in real life. So it's trying to keep it more real. be fun, be entertaining, try to straddle that line and, just like be a little bit different. Cause I think a lot of the B2B content is pretty boring that's targeted at finance and accounting.
Okay, let me just do this in two parts. The first part is like I had a look at some of the content that you've done in the past, and you created coloring book for accountants, right?
Yeah.
That had actually, could you explain exactly, what that was and how that worked? Because I thought it was a really different way of thinking about, like engaging with your audience. And I thought, wow, I've not seen that before,
I love it. And to the creativity thing, calling back to that, like I oversee this group that produces, we call it like alternative content inside of Flowcast. So it's one of my favorite initiatives, and I oversee it because you do need that like in-depth understanding of accounts to really, I think, be effective at it. So the coloring book that came with the team, we were sitting around like, hey, it's mental health awareness month. What's going on? What can we do? And one of the guys said, well, I have a coloring book that's really good, like helps me kind of chill out and stuff like that. And we were like, great, perfect. Let's do a coloring book for accountants. And so we're brainstorming what are some funny pictures, what are some good ideas for things that could be the actual pages that they color in, settled on some ideas. And then, you hire someone to design it, you get the book made, and then you just put the PDF out for people to print and do with, do what they want with it. And so to me, that's the thing where it's like, yeah, we're aware of accounting. We were tapping into a bigger, worldwide trend around mental health awareness month. How do we apply it to our audience and really help the people that we work with, and how do we, have them enjoy it? And so, yeah, kind of a team effort all came together, and I thought it was a very cool content initiative.
Yeah. So one of the parts of the coloring book, because what was cool about it as well was like the things which were in it, which you could color in. So I think I read there were some famous mathematicians in there and stuff like that. So it was kind of like super interesting as well, because it's like, it's not just a coloring book, but it's a coloring book for accountants that have concepts that accountants will understand. And I just thought that was really, really smart.
So that's where like you have the creative idea and then the accounting all comes together. Cause you could be like, here's a coloring book, here's some cool fish patterns you can color or nature or whatever. But no, it's like we grabbed the picture of Luca Pacioli, where he's the guy who invented double entry bookkeeping. And so we have his original image as when you color in. There are a couple other stories that are really, really good. And just, it's all ties back to accounting, but the goal of giving you something to color and turn your brain off a little bit and chill out too while you're doing it.
So that was my first part. And I just had to tell that story because I looked at it, I was like, I've been doing this for a long time, right? And I was like, I've never seen SaaS company or an accounting company or any company do a coloring book. But it was really, really cool. And it's something which I could see actually working. And that's the part which I want to talk about now. You said like most B2B content, super boring and so on, right? What's your approach to content, right? Because people talk about content that it establishes credibility and, like it kind of creates thought leadership and so on, but you've got a kind of a different approach. I mean, so could you talk about like how you see content?
Yeah. Content. It's funny. I'm curious if our CMO is going to listen to this and hear what he has to say about it. But yeah, a lot of content that's made by B2B companies, it's very much about it's demand generation focused. And it's things like, and mostly that comes around education and how do you be better at your job, which is important. I don't want to downplay that at all. It's very important. Everyone wants to be great at what they do. However, when I look at accounting, a lot of people majored in accounting because they wanted a steady paycheck, and they're not necessarily about how do I become a CFO one day. Maybe you're an accounting manager and you love that job and you're not working a ton. You're working, your 40 hours, you get to hang out with your family, you play softball on the weekends with your friends, have barbecues, and like, that's an amazing life. And that's what you want to do. You don't want to talk about optimizing blah, blah, blah process or whatever. That's totally cool. I get it. And so it's important to have the mix of content that hits at the people who really care about their job and really want to excel. And we do that through educational content. And in particular, we like to do things that are that qualify for CPE credits. So CPAs have a ongoing learning requirement. They have to take 40 hours of courses every year to remain. So we do that. So we do a bunch of webinars and stuff that are all CPE certified. So we try to make it, as easy as possible for accountants to stay up to date with their CPA license by doing that.
Just quickly for the listeners, just think about how smart that is. It's content that the accountants can do to help with their qualification. So that is smart. I just wanted to really pull that out because Imagine if you could create content that your target audience had to do as part of their continuing professional education. Anyway, I just had to just pull that one out because that's a good leverage point. Anyway, sorry, I cut you off. Yeah.
No, so I mean, it's not to pat myself on the back too much, but it was a great idea. And our second marketer, she got us all approved with the CPA license board. It's called NASBA, and there are a couple others, but so she got us approved with all of that. So now we can host all of our webinars that are compliant with that. Now, a lot of companies in our space do that. It's not like completely earth shattering, but what's different is it is so boring when you watch a webinar by another company. So boring. And then the questions are like, you can get them wrong or right. It boggles my mind. So when I host a webinar and we've set this tone, so everyone else at Flowcast who hosts webinars, it's like, hey, this is not super professional. We're going to be informal. We know what the hell we're talking about. We're accountants. We love this stuff. We're great at it, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. And we're not going to like wear suits on webinars and stuff like that. And then there are no right or wrong answers for the questions. Like, we get that you're all here to just try to get your CPE credit. We're going to make that happen. Pay attention as much as you can, but just like click the answers. There's no right or wrong answer. You will get your credit coming off of this. And so it's that beautiful mix of like, we know what they want, which is education requirements. We also know that a lot of accounts are more chill than you would expect. And so let's just like lean into that and make it easy for them to get what they need, which is all this stuff. So I would say, we like our formal content, but with an informal spin on it. And then the other angle that I really love is, and this is how I think you nail the like not as professionally focused folks, is by focusing on the entertaining component of what you do. So that's where things like the coloring book would come into play. I did a really dumb blog post. Did you watch Game of Thrones by chance? Of course.
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
So, you know, the House of Lannister, they were like the rich house on the show and everything. So I have no idea why I had this idea, but I was like, what would the financial statements of the House of Lannister look like? And so I built up audited financial statements. So I actually put together audited financial statements for the House of Lannister. It's on the Flowcast blog, and it also made it to another accounting blog called Going Concern, because they were just like, what the hell is this? Who would take the time to do this? But there's actually enough commentary in Game of Thrones to where you can build up a financial statement. So if you want to check it out, go for it.
Check it out, everyone, please. I mean, I'm going to check it out after this, because I always wondered, so how much are the Lannisters worth? And what about the bank that funds them? Who the hell was,
So the concept,
right?
So it was the Iron Bank. So the exact premise was the Iron Bank decided they wanted to audit the House of Lannister, and I was tasked with putting the audited financial statements together. So I went in and put you'll see how they're doing at the end of the.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
No, but that's really cool, and I think like what this kind of brings up is, and it's something that's in the B2B space, right? Is that people know that it's important to create content. So they create content and they, like they're following like a formula. But, what's interesting is to really stand out, you kind of need to, yes, you follow the formula, but you can get creative in parts, right? And if you can push the boundaries, that's where people start to go, what the heck is that? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so who's that company, right? And it's such a good place to start like an engagement of some sort. So I just think that's just super interesting. And it's got me thinking too.
I will say that the key is you have to do both though, because if we didn't do the serious education stuff right, then it's like, oh, who are these goofballs that just make fun of? So you need to play it well. It's a difficult game with brand, but I think if you can do both of them, obviously that's the